Now our presentation.
Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the closing tag site build project as featured by Galactic Blue. My name is Raul Smith. I am the president, CEO, co-founder, lead developer for Galactic Blue, as well as the host of the Closing Tag podcast. So before I get started this week, a couple of quick things. I mentioned at the top of this particular project that we were going to be doing this every Monday and Tuesday. That plan has changed, unfortunately, due to some actual client obligations that I have now taken on. We will be only doing this every Monday for about an hour. So kind of keep an eye out for that. And also, I don't know if this is going to be done in time, but there's going to be a week come July, like late July, 3rd or 4th week, where I will be taking a hiatus. Just kind of giving you a heads up so you can plan your schedule accordingly and whatnot. Also, I will be trying my best to upload these videos to YouTube right away, but because of the restrictions, they are going to be hosted for now on the Closing Tag YouTube channel as opposed to the Galactic Blue YouTube channel. However, I will also be uploading this as quickly as possible. No guarantees that it'll be up within 24 hours on the Facebook pages for both Galactic Blue and the Closing Tag. So with those out of the way, let's go ahead and recap what we kind of went over last week. So we went over what I feel are the purposes of this particular site. So anytime that I work on a new website project, I always say to either myself or to the client, what is the purpose of this particular site? Is it going to be informational? Is it going to be a database? Is it going to be for e-commerce? And for the Closing Tag, the answer is all of the above. You can see here, and by the way, I did adjust the font this week so you guys can follow along a little bit better. I noticed last week kind of went over some things, went over some technical issues with my microphone, went over some technical issues with the font size. I was not particularly happy with any of that personally, so I've kind of made some adjustments here and there. We should be good to go now. So anyway, for the database, obviously we want the audio archives of the Closing Tag podcast all housed on that particular site. For the e-commerce, we wanted a PayPal portal so people can have donations sent over to the Closing Tag to show support, and also maybe house a Patreon page. For informational purposes, information on upcoming episodes, potential interview information. So if another interview with someone like James Scott, who was awesome a few weeks ago, if another interview like that came along, then I would probably post like a bio real quick of not only that particular person that's going to be coming on, but also what show or what podcast they're on, as well as links to the podcast on the various providers. So your Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, TuneIn, all the podcast providers that we know of that are playing the Closing Tag podcast, as well as Facebook, YouTube, and Discord, the Discord channel where we have most of our discussions that occasionally pop up on the podcast. The pages that are planned for the site, we obviously want a home landing page. So that's going to be where the schedule is going to be, your PayPal donation, interview series information, so past episodes, like the James Scott episode, as well as future planned episodes, links to everything, as well as the schedule, the PayPal link credentials, and links. Contact page, basic, straightforward contact page, is going to have email information and a form that you can send to me directly, and I should be able to get it. And no, we still do not have a for sure domain name or email name, so don't take this with a grain of anything other than salt at this point. Privacy page is kind of our own little cover our backside type thing, because let's face it, privacy laws are different in different parts of the world. Specifically here in the United States, the privacy laws here in, say, Utah are vastly different than the privacy laws in California. So we want to make sure that we have information about your privacy on our site, basically saying we're not going to sell your information to third-party providers. Obviously, the archived audio and video for the Closing Tag podcast, that's going to house a YouTube plugin, and I'll explain why we want a YouTube plugin as opposed to housing all of the video files ourselves. And about page, information about the podcast, what we are, what we do, what we talk about, and information about the host, namely me. Content, we're going to need to get some content here pretty quick, as well as an image of me, which I happen to have. So yeah. And then of course a logo for the header for the closing tag, which I'll get into why we need that here in a little while as well. So with that, now we go into what is being planned for this week. So I've ultimately decided, and I know that it's kind of going to the well one time too many, but I've ultimately decided that we are going to create the website with something called React. Now, if you don't know what React is, we've touched on it a little bit, both on the podcast and on this particular YouTube channel. React is a JavaScript framework that allows for easy loading, easy rendering, re-rendering of the DOM. Basically trying to get into the technical expertise of this particular framework. It makes things load faster. That's basically the layman's terms of the whole thing. It makes things load faster. And it's also very technically, supportive. Facebook is the one behind React, so if you ever have a problem with React in terms of its usability or technicalities or whatnot, just contact Facebook and they'll probably go over it with you. Facebook's actually working on a new version of React as we speak, which is pretty mind-blowing, honestly. So the reasons I'm going with React for this particular project. Number one, as I mentioned, scalability. It allows me to break down each component, as they're called, as well as break down each page. So I'm able to say, okay, I need to fix something in the header. I just look for the header component and I should be able to find it right there. Or if I need to make a change to the interview portion of the website, like I have a interview coming up with so-and-so, I easily go to that particular component, upload the image, upload the content, and say, okay, here's when our next interview is going to be. It makes things a lot easier for me as a content provider and as a developer to be able to go in, make those quick changes within like 2 minutes, and boom, everything's done and uploaded, ready to go. Reliability, like I mentioned, Facebook was the one that created React in the first place. So technical support is not something that comes very rarely with React. Also, if I need to learn how to do something or how to integrate something, like say ultimately I want to bring a Patreon page on board, or if I want to expand the website out a little bit and maybe do like a 30-second ad clip just pop up randomly on the website or whatnot, I can do that and I can look it up relatively easy. Google's been huge in terms of being able to find what I need in terms of if I have trouble trying to decide what it is I want to do with something. Google's been very helpful in helping me decide which route I want to take with a particular React component. Stack Overflow's been pretty awesome too. Quick and easy upgrading. So I mentioned Facebook is working on version 18 of React. I will be using version 17, obviously, to create this particular project. But if, say for instance, one of the components needs updating, or if I need to update React or Node or something that could potentially break the website, I'm able to go in, make the quick changes, test it out on my local end, and make sure that everything is working properly before I upload it to my hosting provider. Lastly, lazy loading. So let me break down what lazy loading is. So lazy loading is, how on Facebook you have the page, you have like the header, your image, all of your friends that are currently online, and all the links to like the groups or the memories or whatever. But it takes a couple minutes longer or a couple seconds longer for the actual post to load up. That's what's called lazy loading. So it basically allows a website to load some of the quicker stuff faster, but also makes it so that it's still rendering, it's still rendering the DOM, as it's called, to bring in that extra content. And that increases not only page load time, but also is very useful when you're trying to get your site optimized for search engines. And right now, Google's going through a major update on all of their search engine algorithms. Say that 5 times fast. And a big component right now of that is lazy loading. So if your site is taking too long to load, that could negatively affect your website in the search engine algorithm. Now, what am I going to need exactly for this particular project, for this React project? Well, I'm going to need the core things, so React Router DOM. I'm going to need that core element right there. I'm going to need something that's called Axios. And what Axios is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to ping or grab information from the PayPal API, from the YouTube API, even potentially from the Patreon API. It's going to allow me to grab that information relatively easily and quickly, so then that way I can break it down and display the information exactly how I want. I'm going to need something called React Bootstrap. Now, I don't know how many of you that are watching this are familiar with the core Bootstrap CSS, Bootstrap styling. Basically, Bootstrap is something that allows you to style a page or its components a lot easier. And React Bootstrap is the React version of that. So instead of having to type out, like, say, div class equals container fluid, instead of having to type all of that out, just basically type out container. Boom, done. Makes my job a lot easier as a developer, and it makes it easier for me to kind of go in and see, okay, this is a row, this is a column, this is a container. What do I need to do to make changes here and there? I could potentially need more stuff down the line, but for right now, these three are the core three that I'm going to need to get rolling. Now, the external assets that I'm going to need, and this is probably something that I'm going to need to do off stream because of security reasons. So the YouTube API, I'm going to need to grab the API key, and I'm going to need to grab the particular key code, I guess is what it's called, for YouTube to be able to bring in all of the videos from the closing tag channel to allow that to be displayed on the website. I'm going to need an API to bring in the audio file, so that's where the Axios thing is going to come to play. And I am also going to need a PayPal integration key that's going to allow people to donate to the website, basically just using the integration key from PayPal. So someone clicks on the donate button, it takes them straight to PayPal, and then they're allowed then to input whatever the amount is that they want to donate to the closing tag website. Oh, thankfully that sound in the background is, I don't know if you can hear that, but that was a really bad sound. I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on there. So that's all the stuff that I'm really gonna need on this end. Let me switch screens here real quick. Now what I am gonna need to do is I'm gonna need to do some stuff off screen here. Hold on one second. Okay. All right. So now I have a program that's being loaded up right now. And if you're working with code, if you're working with a website, if you're working with anything in regards to web development or coding, the number one thing that you need is an IDE or a code editor. For me, I mean, I've tried using Atom, I've tried using, I can't remember what the other one's called. I've tried using Vim. I've tried using a number of different code editors, but for me personally, the best one that I found that's going to be useful for me as a developer is something called Visual Studio Code. This is something that's created by Microsoft, so it integrates perfectly with Windows, but I have noticed that it also is very useful on MacBook. Okay, so I'm going to try and increase the screen size here so it's not as small. Here we go. Okay. Just going to try and make this a little bit less clunky. So I've already changed the folder in my integrated terminal to where I house mainly all of my websites. All of the sites that I've worked on in the past, all of the sites that I'm currently working on now, and all the websites that I will be working on will all fall in that folder. So I'm going to go ahead and type in npx create react app, the closing tag. And what that will do is it will create the core React app and give it the name the closing tag. And you can see it's installing React, React DOM, React scripts, and the CRA template. Basically what I want to do as soon as that's done is I want to make some changes to what's called the package.json file. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a little bit. While this is loading, while this is installing, I do want to refresh everybody that we are probably going to be dropping a new episode of the podcast probably after Father's Day. So the reason for that is I've got a very busy schedule this week with work and with everything else that's going on. And this weekend I am going to be doing father stuff for Father's Day. Not for my dad, but because I am a dad. So my weekend's pretty much booked as it is. So I am not going to be able to do anything, regarding web development or anything like that this weekend. So the plan is Tuesday or Wednesday of next week is when a new episode of the closing tag will drop. And that will be a pretty extensive episode because I was unable to come in last week because of the amount of time that I'm allotted on the podcast subscription provider that I'm currently signed up with. So once I have my allotted time pretty much filled, then I can't drop any more, not even another minute of the podcast. But I am currently also working on getting at least one or two more interviews lined up before the end of the summer. So probably one towards the end of June, maybe early July for 4th of July. And another one for around first or second week of August. And so I'm hoping that will, keep people interested at least. So while this is going on, I'm going to take a very quick break. And so when I get back, I will hopefully have this ready to go. So instead of listening to me talk for another 10 minutes, let's go ahead and switch over to the starting screen. So I'll be right back, guys. Okay guys, I'm back. So let's go ahead and switch this over back to VS Code. So everything's been installed. Everything is awesome. No, I'm just kidding. Um, everything is loaded right here. You can see like the node modules. There's a public folder. There's a source folder. There's a get ignore folder, which will come into play probably within the next, I don't know, couple weeks. Package lock JSON, package JSON, and a README. So we're going to go ahead and open the package JSON file. Just need to make a couple quick edits here. So the name of the package is the closing tag. Private is true. There's some dependencies here. There's some scripts. ESLint config. So you've got your React app, your React app jest. Browsers list. So basically it's looking for the last Chrome version, the last Firefox version, or the last Safari version. So what I'm going to want to do to make some changes to the package JSON file is I'm going to do an npm install of those particular packages that we had discussed at the beginning of the stream. So we're going to go npm install save React Router DOM, Axios, and React Bootstrap. Now it's going to go ahead and install those real quick. Shouldn't take nearly as long as the initial core installation. And yep, everything is good there. Alright, so now we scroll back up here. You will notice React Bootstrap's been added, React Router DOM's been added, and Axios has been added. Now, if you're installing those fresh, it will grab the latest stable version of each one of those particular elements or those particular packages, and it will install them automatically. So unless you specify a version right here, it's going to just grab whatever the latest version was. Now the downside to that is if you need to update it, you have to manually put in the version number that you want to update to. So with all of that done, we're going to go ahead. Give me 1 second here. We're going to go ahead and do an npm start. Now what that's going to do is it's going to gather all of the files, the assets, the packages, everything, and it's going to compile the website in a development testing folder or development testing page. And you can see right here, everything is loaded up just fine, and it even says edit source app.jss and save to reload. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to look for source app.js. Now, one thing I will point out, and this is something that bugs me as a developer, as a website person, as someone that's been working with the web in some capacity or another for 20 years. This thing right here where my mouse, well, I guess you can't really see the mouse, but basically at the very top where it says React App on the tab, that annoys me. So we're going to change that first before we do anything else. So we're actually going to go to the public folder where the HTML file is currently being housed. So index.html, we're going to go down to where it says title, and we're going to change this title from React App to the closing tag. Now if we switch back over to this, you'll see that the closing tag is now in the tab that's at the very top of the screen. So we're done with index for now. We're going to go ahead and open app.js, and I'm going to break down exactly what's going on here. So before I do that, we're going to go into the index.js file. This is the probably more important file than app.js, because this is, as they say in the showbiz, where the magic happens. So we're importing React, we're importing React DOM, we're importing the index CSS file, which we'll get into that later. We're importing app, so that's where the app.js file is coming in, and we're importing something called report web vitals. So what is report web vitals? It's basically, a thing that reports the web vitals. So it's reporting your CLS, your FID, LCP, so forth. I have absolutely no idea what any of those stand for. I will probably look into finding that out by next week. So right here is where the React DOM is being rendered. So it's going to bring in what's called a React strict mode, and that's where the app comes into play. So the app.js, is being imported. All the stuff that's in this file is being imported like it would be a PHP file or a HTML file, like an iframe, I guess you could say, a more effective iframe. It's being imported right here. So everything that we change in the app.js file is going to be affected here. So keeping that in mind, we're going back to the app.js file. This is where it's going to import the logo. So I don't have the logo for the closing tag right now. This is basically importing that spinning logo that you saw right there. And then it's importing the app CSS file, which I guess we can open that to find out what's in it. Your basic, your background color, your animation to make the logo spin, all that fun what. And we'll get into some of that probably next week. I'm not worried about it right now. This is where you're declaring the function or the name of the component. So right here, we're calling the app function or the app component, and we're returning what's called JSX. Basically what JSX is, it is JavaScript rendered HTML. So all the stuff right here is all HTML, yes, but it is all being generated by the JavaScript. So div, and you'll notice instead of class to call a CSS class, it's asking to be called a class name. And the reason for that is because React already has something called a class built into it. So if you're calling one thing a class and you're calling another thing a class, the computer's going to get confused and boom, your site crashes. So instead, it's basically calling for a class name. So you've got your class name app, your header class name app header. This is where the logo is right here. And this is where that message is: edit source app.js, or edit source / app.js and save and reload, or save to reload. So instead of saying edit source/app.js, we're going to put in edit the closing tag and save and reload. So we're going to save. And you will notice it makes the change there. Edit the closing tag and save to reload. Now, what if I want to just take that logo out entirely? We can do that right now. So image source logo is gone, and you'll notice that this is now dimmed out a little bit, basically saying that, hey, this is being declared, but it's not being used. So instead of just letting it sit there and take up space, we're going to get rid of it. Save. And if you'll notice, the spinning logo's gone. So now, the last thing I want to do in here before we wrap things up for the day is I'm going to put in what's called an H1 with a class name of Title 1. The closing tag website is coming soon. Save it. Now, because I removed that background, I removed that container that had all the stuff in it, it also removed the background with the darker color. So, prep your eyes. It's going to get bright, like so. The closing tag website is coming soon. So that is going to be it for now. We're going to be diving a little bit deeper into like how to put together a header component, how to put together, stuff. But first, I need to work on getting assets. And by that, I mean I'm going to work on a logo that's going to be what I consider header friendly, because I don't know if this particular logo right here is going to be considered header friendly. It's going to be too squished together, if you ask me. So, with that being said, that was a much shorter stream than I was anticipating, but I think it was very constructive and very informative. So, we're going to stop there for today. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, for coming by and saying, well, I guess not really saying hi, but for at least coming by and watching. And I think this is very good, informative last 45 minutes. So obviously you know where to find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/galacticblue1, Facebook, YouTube. You can find Galactic Blue. You can find the closing tag. We do the closing tag podcast, like I mentioned, every once in a while. Schedule's pretty fluid, unfortunately. I am working on getting a more set schedule. But look out for the James Scott interview. That's the latest one that's up on all the podcast feeds right now. And I will see you guys back here again next week, next Monday. As the TV man would say, same blue time, same blue channel. Thank you guys, and have an awesome, awesome rest of your evening.
On that, our presentation.